Marriage is like IT support. Nobody appreciates you until everything crashes. That's what I told myself every morning while watching my wife Roxanne apply her makeup with the precision of a surgeon preparing for battle. At 41, I'd learned that most problems in life could be solved with patience, logic, and the right diagnostic tools. What I hadn't learned yet was that some problems weren't meant to be fixed, they were meant to be deleted permanently. My name is Harold Finch, and I make a decent living as an IT procurement consultant for mid-sized companies around Cleveland. It's not glamorous work, but it pays the bills and keeps our 16-year-old son Ben in the latest gaming equipment. Roxanne, my wife of 18 years, works as a corporate communications manager at Meridian Solutions, a regional consulting firm downtown. She's sharp, charming, and has always been the social butterfly in our relationship. Or at least, that's what I thought until 3 months ago. The first sign something was wrong came during dinner on a Tuesday in March. Ben was upstairs playing some online game with his friends, and Roxanne was picking at her salmon like it had personally offended her. "How was work today?" I asked, the same question I'd been asking for 18 years. "Fine," she replied without looking up from her phone. "Gerry's implementing some new communication protocols. Lots of late meetings this week." Gerry Dalton was her boss, a 44-year-old golden boy who'd climbed the corporate ladder faster than a spider monkey on espresso. Married to a woman named Linda, father of 2 kids, and the kind of guy who wore expensive suits and drove a BMW like it was a personality trait. "Maybe I should call you next time instead of texting," I suggested. "Seems like you're always in meetings when I try to reach you." Roxanne's fingers froze over her phone screen for just a moment. Barely a heartbeat, but I caught it. In my line of work, you learn to notice when systems start showing irregular behavior. "That's not necessary," she said quickly. "Kira handles my calls during meetings anyway." Kira was Roxanne's 26-year-old assistant, a nervous young woman who always seemed like she was apologizing for existing. Sweet girl, but about as good at keeping secrets as a broken firewall. Over the next few weeks, the irregular behavior patterns became more pronounced. Roxanne started working late 3 nights a week instead of her usual one. She password protected her phone and laptop, claiming the company had implemented new security measures. She bought new lingerie, expensive stuff that never seemed to make an appearance in our bedroom. The most telling sign came from our son Ben, who inherited my eye for detail along with my sarcastic sense of humor. "Dad, why doesn't Mom eat dinner with us anymore?" he asked one evening while we were sharing a pizza and watching a movie. "She's just busy with work, buddy. You know how it is." "Yeah, but she used to complain about her job all the time. Now she talks about it like it's the best thing ever, especially her boss." Ben gave me a look that was far too knowing for a 16-year-old. "It's weird, right? Out of the mouths of babes and gamers." The breaking point came on a Friday afternoon in early April. I needed Roxanne to sign some tax documents, so I called her office around 3 o'clock. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "Meridian Solutions, this is Kira speaking." "Hey Kira, it's Harold. Is Roxanne available? I need her to look at some paperwork." There was a pause, the kind of pause that happens when someone's brain is frantically searching for the right lie to tell. "Oh, hi Harold, she's in a meeting right now. With Gerry, they're, Another pause, longer this time. "She's busy with the boss, if you know what I mean." The words hit me like a system crash. Not because I didn't suspect. I'd been running diagnostics on my marriage for weeks. But hearing it confirmed so casually, so carelessly, felt like watching 18 years of data get corrupted in real time. Instead of hanging up or demanding details, I found myself saying something completely unexpected. "Kira, this might sound strange, but would you like to go on a date with me?" The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. "What? Harold, I don't think—" "Not that kind of date," I said quickly, my IT consultant brain already formulating a plan. "Just dinner? Public place? I think we need to have a conversation about what's really going on, and I think you might want to talk to someone who won't judge you for being caught in the middle." Another pause, but shorter this time. When Kira spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Romano's Italian, 6 o'clock. But Harold, this is just talking, right?" "Just talking," I confirmed. "And Kira, thank you for being honest with me." I spent the rest of the afternoon in my home office, staring at my computer screen and processing what I'd learned. Roxanne was having an affair with her boss. Her assistant knew about it. And instead of confronting my wife directly, I was about to have dinner with a 26-year-old woman who held the keys to exposing the whole mess. My phone buzzed with a text from Roxanne. "Working late again tonight. Don't wait up." I typed back, "No problem. I've got plans anyway." Romano's Italian was busy for a Friday night, which was exactly what I wanted. Kira arrived 10 minutes late, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else in the world. She changed out of her work clothes into jeans and a sweater, and without the corporate armor, she looked even younger than her 26 years. "I can't believe I'm doing this," she said as we were seated at a table near the window. "You're doing the right thing," I told her. "And I want you to know up front, this isn't about getting you in trouble or putting you in an awkward position. I just need to understand what's been happening." Over the next hour, Kira told me everything. How Roxanne and Gerry had been staying late for strategy sessions that involved more wine than strategy. How she'd been covering for them, taking messages and rescheduling appointments. How uncomfortable it made her, especially since she knew Gerry was married. "She makes me feel like I'm part of some conspiracy," Kira said, picking at her pasta. "Like I'm betraying his wife just by keeping quiet." "You're not betraying anyone," I assured her. "You're just trying to keep your job." "But it's wrong, isn't it? What they're doing." "Yeah, it is." Kira reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. "She's been having me send text messages to his wife, pretending they're from him. About working late, business trips, that kind of thing." She showed me the message thread. Nothing explicitly incriminating, but definitely the kind of coordination that happens when two people are trying to cover their tracks. "Can I ask you a favor?" I said as we finished dinner. "Depends on the favor." "Can I take a picture of us? Nothing romantic or suggestive. Just two people having dinner. I want to post it online." Kira looked confused. "Why?" "Because I think it's time for some transparency in my marriage." She agreed, and I took a simple photo of us at the table, both smiling politely. Nothing that could be misinterpreted, but definitely something that would raise questions. I posted it to Facebook with the caption, "Dinner with unexpected company. Sometimes the best conversations happen with people you least expect." I tagged the restaurant and made sure the post was public. "What happens now?" Kira asked as we walked to our cars. "Now we see how my wife reacts to a little taste of her own medicine." I didn't have to wait long. My phone started ringing before I even made it home. "What the hell is this?" Roxanne's voice was shrill with fury. "What are you doing with my assistant?" "Having dinner," I said calmly. "Is that a problem?" "You're embarrassing me. You're embarrassing both of us. Take that picture down right now." "I don't think I will," I replied, pulling into our driveway. "See you when you get home from your late meeting." I hung up and sat in my car for a moment, watching the lights in our house. Ben was probably upstairs gaming, oblivious to the fact that his parents' marriage was about to become a very public spectacle. My phone buzzed with notifications, likes, comments, and shares on the photo. Roxanne's friends were already asking questions. If she was this mad about dinner, I thought, wait until she sees tomorrow's menu. Roxanne came home at midnight, slamming the front door hard enough to rattle the windows. I was in my home office, ostensibly working on a procurement proposal, but actually researching divorce attorneys and asset protection strategies. "Harold!" Her voice echoed through the house like a fire alarm. "We need to talk. Now." I saved my work and walked to the living room, where Roxanne was pacing like a caged animal. Her hair was disheveled, her lipstick smudged, and she smelled like wine and expensive cologne that definitely wasn't mine. "Explain that picture," she demanded, waving her phone in my face. "Explain why you're posting photos of yourself with my assistant while I'm working late." "I thought it was a nice photo," I said, settling into my favorite chair. "Kira's good company. Very insightful." "Insightful about what?" "About a lot of things. Work dynamics, office relationships, the importance of honest communication." Roxanne's face went pale, then flushed red. "What did she tell you?" Nothing I hadn't already figured out on my own. We stared at each other across the living room, 18 years of marriage reduced to this moment of mutual recognition. She knew that I knew. I knew that she knew that I knew. The only question now was who would make the first move. "It's not what you think," she said finally. "I think you're having an affair with Gerry Dalton. I think you've been using Kira to cover for you. And I think you're more upset about getting caught than you are about betraying our marriage." "That's not—" She stopped, regrouped, tried a different approach. "Harold, we can work through this. It's just a rough patch. Every marriage has rough patches." "Every marriage has rough patches," I agreed. "Not every marriage has one spouse screwing their boss in a downtown hotel room." The specific detail hit home. Roxanne's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "Kira mentioned the expense reports," I explained. "Company credit card charges at the Marriott downtown, same dates as your late meetings. I used to do forensic accounting before I moved into IT procurement. Pattern recognition is kind of my specialty." Roxanne collapsed onto the couch, her fight deflating like a punctured balloon. "What do you want?" "I want you to stop lying to me. I want you to stop lying to yourself. And I want you to understand that actions have consequences." "Are you going to divorce me?" "I'm going to protect myself and our son. What you do next will determine how messy that process becomes. She tried tears next, then anger, then bargaining. None of it worked. I'd spent 3 weeks preparing for this conversation, and I wasn't going to be swayed by emotional manipulation. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Tanya Williams, a friend who worked in HR at a different company but knew the employment law landscape in Cleveland. The second was to an anonymous tip line that Meridian Solutions had set up for reporting ethics violations. "I'd like to report a potential conflict of interest," I told the voice on the other end of the line. "A supervisor and subordinate who may be using company resources for personal activities." I didn't mention names. I didn't need to. I just provided dates, locations, and suggested they review expense reports and hotel receipts. Then I went to work on my real project, documenting everything. Over the weekend, while Roxanne was shopping with friends, which I now understood meant meeting Gerry at their usual hotel, I created a comprehensive timeline of her affair. Credit card statements, cell phone records, social media posts, work schedules, all legally obtained information that painted a very clear picture of deception. I also moved half of our joint savings into a separate account in my name only. Not illegal, since it was marital property, but it would prevent Roxanne from cleaning us out if she decided to run off with her boss. Monday morning brought the first signs that my anonymous tip had found its target. Roxanne called me at work, her voice tight with panic. "They're asking questions," she said without preamble. "Who's asking what questions?" "HR. They want to see expense reports. They're asking about business travel and client meetings." A pause. "Harold, did I what?" "Nothing. Never mind." But I knew she was starting to connect the dots. Good. It was time for her to experience a little uncertainty in her perfectly planned double life. Tuesday brought more drama. Kira called me during lunch, whispering like she was afraid someone would overhear. "They interviewed me this morning," she said. HR and some woman from legal. They asked about Roxanne's schedule, about meetings with Gerry, about whether I'd ever been asked to cover for anything inappropriate. "What did you tell them?" "The truth. I couldn't lie anymore, Harold. I'm tired of being part of this mess." "You did the right thing." Roxanne is furious. She cornered me in the break room and accused me of betraying her confidence, said I'd never work in corporate communications again if I didn't keep my mouth shut. Did anyone else hear her say that? Ashley from accounting was right there. She heard everything. Perfect. Witness to intimidation and potential retaliation. Roxanne was making this easier than I'd expected. Wednesday was when things really started to unravel. I got a text from Kira. "Emergency meeting. Gerry and Roxanne both called into HR. Office is buzzing." I couldn't resist driving by Meridian Solutions during lunch. The parking garage was full of expensive cars belonging to the kind of executives who got called in when someone was about to be fired. Gerry's BMW was there, along with Roxanne's Honda and several vehicles I recognized as belonging to the senior management team. My phone rang as I was sitting in the parking garage. "Harold, I need to see you." Roxanne's voice was barely controlled panic. "Can you meet me for coffee?" "I'm busy. Please, this is important." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her at a Starbucks near my office. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with her hands wrapped around a coffee cup like it was an anchor. "They're trying to destroy me," she said as soon as I sat down. "Who's trying to destroy you?" "The company. HR. Someone reported Gerry and me for having an inappropriate relationship." "Were you having an inappropriate relationship?" She looked at me like I'd asked if water was wet. "That's not the point." "I think that's exactly the point." "Harold, they're going to fire me. They're talking about policy violations and misuse of company resources. They want to know about every business dinner, every late meeting, every time I've been alone with Gerry." "What did you tell them?" "What could I tell them? The truth would end my career. And lying would end it faster." Roxanne leaned across the table, her eyes desperate. "You could help me. You could tell them we've been having marriage problems, that I've been staying late at work to avoid coming home. You could give me an alibi." I almost laughed. After months of deception, she wanted me to lie for her. "No," I said simply. "No? I'm not going to lie to protect you from the consequences of your own choices. But you're my husband." "Yes, I am, and you're my wife. How did that work out for you?" I left her sitting in Starbucks and drove back to my office, where I had a very productive afternoon researching divorce attorneys and asset protection strategies. Thursday brought news that Gerry had been placed on administrative leave pending the outcome of the investigation. Friday brought word that Roxanne had been transferred to a different department and demoted to a communications specialist position. That evening, she came home with a box of personal items from her old office and the kind of shell-shocked expression you see on people who've just survived a car accident. Are you happy now? She asked, setting the box on the kitchen counter. I'm not unhappy, I replied. This is all your fault. No, Roxanne, this is all your fault. I just stopped enabling it. What happens now? I pulled a manila envelope from my briefcase and set it on the counter next to her box of office supplies. Divorce papers, I explained. You can review them with your attorney. I think you'll find the terms fair, considering the circumstances. She opened the envelope with shaking hands and scanned the first page. You're taking the house? The house is in my name. The mortgage is in my name. You're welcome to buy me out if you can qualify for a loan. The savings accounts? What's left of them will be split according to Ohio law, minus the legal fees, of course. Harold, we can fix this. We can go to counseling, we can work through. No, I interrupted. We can't. You made your choice when you decided to have an affair. I'm making mine now. She tried to argue, but I walked away. I had better things to do than listen to someone try to negotiate their way out of consequences they'd earned through months of deception. My phone buzzed with a text from Kira. Drinks tomorrow? I think we both deserve to celebrate surviving this week. I typed back, sounds perfect. Romano's at 6? See you there? I posted another photo that night. Just me, smiling at the camera with the caption, sometimes the best revenge is simply living well. If Roxanne was upset about that, she kept it to herself. She was probably too busy figuring out how to explain her demotion to her friends. Saturday evening at Romano's was considerably more relaxed than our first meeting. Kira looked like a weight had been lifted from her shoulders, and I felt like I'd successfully debugged a corrupted system. I got transferred to a different department, she told me over appetizers. Marketing communications, better pay, better boss, and no more covering for other people's bad decisions. Congratulations. You deserve it. What about you? How are you handling everything? Better than I expected. Turns out there's something liberating about not having to pretend everything is fine when it's clearly not. We were joined by Tanya Williams, my HR friend, who had insights into how corporate investigations typically played out. Word travels fast in the business community, she said, sliding into our booth. Gerry's reputation is pretty much shot. No one wants to hire an executive who can't maintain professional boundaries. And Roxanne? Harder to say. She wasn't in a position of authority, so the power dynamic issue doesn't apply to her the same way. But the trust factor? Tanya shrugged. Communications is all about credibility. Once that's gone, it's hard to get back. As we were talking, I noticed a familiar figure across the restaurant. Linda Dalton, Gerry's wife, was sitting alone at the bar, working on what appeared to be her third martini. Excuse me for a minute, I said, and walked over to introduce myself. Mrs. Dalton, I'm Harold Finch. I believe our spouses work together. She looked up at me with eyes that were equal parts fury and exhaustion. Worked together, past tense. I'm sorry for what you're going through. Are you? Because from what I hear, you're the one who started this whole investigation. I reported what I observed. What happened after that was up to your husband and my wife. Linda took a long sip of her martini. 20 years of marriage, 2 kids, a house in Shaker Heights, all of it gone because my husband couldn't keep his pants zipped. I'm filing for divorce, I told her. If you need any documentation or evidence for your own proceedings, I'm happy to share what I have. You'd do that? We're both victims here. No reason we can't help each other. She pulled out her phone and we exchanged contact information. As I was walking back to my table, I noticed several people from Meridian Solutions at various tables around the restaurant. The corporate gossip network was definitely in full swing. Making friends? Tanya asked as I sat back down. Building alliances, I corrected. There's a difference. We finished dinner and I drove Kira to her car, which was parked in a well-lit area of the parking garage. As we were saying goodbye, a BMW pulled up behind us. Gerry Dalton got out of the driver's seat, and he did not look happy. Well, he said, walking toward us with the kind of swagger that comes from too much alcohol and too little common sense. If it isn't the happy couple. Mr. Dalton, I said evenly, you look like you've had a long day. Thanks to you, I've had a long week. A long month, actually. Kira stepped closer to me, clearly uncomfortable with the confrontation. I don't think we have anything to discuss, I told Gerry. Oh, I think we do. See, I know you're the one who called in that anonymous tip. I know you've been poisoning my assistant against me, and I know you're trying to destroy my career out of some petty jealousy. Your career destroyed itself. I just documented the process. Gerry took a step closer, and I could smell the whiskey on his breath. You think you're so smart, don't you? Little IT guy playing detective. I think I'm smart enough to know when someone is making threats in a public place with witnesses present. This isn't a threat. This is a promise. You're going to drop the divorce proceedings. You're going to tell your wife you made a mistake, and you're going to find a way to undo the damage you've caused to my reputation." I almost laughed. "Or what? Or I'll make your life very, very difficult." Instead of backing down, I pulled out my phone and started recording. "Could you repeat that last part? I want to make sure I get it exactly right for the police report." Gerry's face went from red to purple. "You son of a—" "Careful," I interrupted. "You're already facing potential charges for misuse of company resources. Do you really want to add harassment and intimidation to the list?" He looked like he wanted to hit me, but even drunk, he was smart enough to know that assault charges would end any chance he had of salvaging his career. "This isn't over," he said, backing toward his car. "Yes, it is," I replied. "You just don't know it yet." As Gerry drove away, Kira let out a breath she'd been holding. "That was intense," she said. "That was stupid. He just gave me everything I need to get a restraining order." "Are you going to?" "I'm going to think about it. But first, I'm going to make sure this video gets to the right people." The next morning, I sent copies of the parking garage recording to Linda Dalton, my divorce attorney, and the HR department at Meridian Solutions. By Monday afternoon, Gerry had been terminated for cause and was facing potential criminal charges for harassment. Roxanne, meanwhile, was discovering that her support network wasn't as solid as she'd thought. Her best friend Ashley, the one who'd overheard her threatening Kira, had apparently been sharing details of Roxanne's situation with anyone who would listen. Her other close friend, Priya, was distancing herself from the drama, claiming she'd never really known about the affair. The social media fallout was particularly brutal. Someone, I suspected Ashley, had posted a blind item on a local gossip app about a certain corporate communications manager who'd been demoted for having an affair with her married boss. The comments section was a feeding frenzy of speculation and judgment. Roxanne tried to control the narrative by posting her own version of events on Facebook, claiming she was the victim of a vindictive ex-husband who was trying to destroy her career out of spite. The post backfired spectacularly. Within hours, it had dozens of comments from people who knew both of us, most of them pointing out that we weren't actually divorced yet, and asking pointed questions about why I would want to destroy her career if there wasn't more to the story. Linda Dalton commented directly, "Interesting how the victims in these situations never want to take responsibility for their choices." Ben, who had been remarkably mature throughout the entire process, asked me about the Facebook drama over dinner. "Mom's really mad about people talking about her online," he said. "How do you feel about all this?" I asked. "Honestly, I'm kind of relieved. The house has been weird for months. At least now I know why." "Are you okay with the divorce?" "Dad, I'm 16. I'm not stupid. I know what an affair is, and I know Mom wasn't working late all those nights." He paused. "I'm proud of you for not just letting it slide." "Thanks, buddy. That means a lot." "Plus, now I don't have to pretend to like Gerry when he comes to my graduation." "Gerry won't be coming to your graduation." "Good. He always smelled like too much cologne anyway." That weekend, Roxanne made one last attempt to salvage our marriage. She showed up at the house on Saturday morning with flowers, apologies, and a promise to do whatever it takes to fix things. "I've been thinking," she said, standing in our kitchen like she was auditioning for the role of repentant wife. "Maybe this whole thing was a blessing in disguise. Maybe we needed this wake-up call to remember what's important." "What's important to you?" I asked. "Our family, our marriage, our future together." "What about Gerry?" "That's over, completely over. It was a mistake, Harold, a terrible mistake that I regret every day. Because you got caught. Because I hurt you, because I hurt our family." I looked at this woman I'd been married to for 18 years, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no lingering affection. She'd become a stranger wearing my wife's face. "It's too late," I said simply. "It's never too late. We can go to counseling, we can take a vacation, we can—" "Roxanne, stop. It's over. You made your choice when you decided to have an affair. I made mine when I decided to stop pretending it wasn't happening." "But I love you." "No, you don't. You love the idea of not having to face the consequences of your actions. You love the idea of keeping your comfortable life without having to give up your exciting affair. You love the idea of having your cake and eating it too. That's not fair. Fair would have been you ending our marriage before you started sleeping with your boss. Fair would have been you being honest with me instead of making me feel crazy for noticing that something was wrong. Fair would have been you taking responsibility for your choices instead of blaming me for exposing them." She left without another word, and I spent the rest of the day feeling lighter than I had in months. Monday brought news that Gerry had been arrested for violating the restraining order Linda had gotten against him. Apparently, he'd shown up at her house drunk and demanding to see his kids. Tuesday brought news that Roxanne had been let go from Meridian Solutions entirely. Restructuring, according to the official announcement, but everyone knew the real reason. Wednesday brought a call from my divorce attorney. She wants to settle, Ms. Hopewell told me. No contest, no demands for alimony, no fight over assets. She just wants it to be over. What changed her mind? Reality, I suspect. Her legal bills are mounting, her career prospects are limited, and her reputation is shot. Fighting a lengthy divorce battle would only make things worse. What are the terms? Essentially what we proposed originally. You keep the house and your retirement accounts. She keeps her car and her personal belongings. Joint assets get split 50-50, minus legal fees. And Ben? She's agreeing to joint custody with you as the primary custodial parent. She'll have visitation rights, but she's not fighting for primary custody. Why not? Probably because she knows she'd lose. Affairs don't play well in family court, especially when there's evidence of deception and financial misconduct. I signed the settlement agreement that afternoon, and by Friday, my 18-year marriage was officially over. That evening, I took Ben out for dinner to celebrate the end of what he called the weirdest semester of high school ever. So what happens now? He asked over pizza. Now we figure out what our new normal looks like. Will Mom be okay? Your mother is a smart, capable woman. She'll figure it out. Do you hate her? I thought about that question for a long time before answering. No, I don't hate her. I'm disappointed in her. I'm angry about the lies and the deception. But hate takes too much energy, and I'd rather spend that energy on building a better life for us. That's very mature of you. Don't sound so surprised. Ben grinned. I'm just saying, if someone cheated on me, I'd probably want to key their car or something. Who says I didn't think about it? Did you? Let's just say I considered several options before settling on the legal route. Probably for the best. You don't look good in orange. As we were driving home, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. This is Roxanne. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. Not just about getting caught, but about all of it. You deserved better, and I hope someday you can forgive me. I showed the message to Ben. Are you going to respond? He asked. I don't think so. Some conversations are better left unfinished. Good call. Besides, you've got better things to do than worry about Mom's guilt. Like what? Like helping me figure out which college has the best computer science program. I've been thinking I might want to go into IT procurement, like my old man. I thought you wanted to be a professional gamer. That's Plan B. Plan A is learning how to be the kind of person who solves problems instead of creating them. I couldn't have asked for a better compliment. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in June, exactly 3 months after I'd first called Roxanne's office and spoken to Kira. What should have been a somber occasion felt more like a software update, removing corrupted files and optimizing system performance, but Roxanne wasn't ready to accept the new operating parameters. The first sign of trouble came that weekend when Ben returned from his court-mandated visitation with his mother looking confused and slightly angry. She wants me to talk to you, he said, dropping his overnight bag by the front door. About what? About giving her another chance. About how divorce is bad for kids, and families should stick together no matter what. He rolled his eyes. She's got this whole speech prepared about how you're being vindictive and how she's learned from her mistakes. What did you tell her? I told her that I'm not a messenger service and that if she wants to talk to you, she should call you herself. And? She said you won't take her calls. That's because I blocked her number after she called me 15 times in one day last week. Ben nodded approvingly. Good boundary setting, Dad. My son had been reading self-help books about divorce and family dynamics. At 16, he was handling this better than most adults would. The second sign of trouble came Monday morning when I discovered that Roxanne had created several fake social media accounts and was using them to leave negative reviews for my consulting business. Harold Finch is unprofessional and vindictive, read one review on Google. He destroyed my career out of personal spite and can't be trusted with confidential business information. Avoid this consultant at all costs, said another on LinkedIn. He uses private information to hurt people and has serious ethical issues. I screenshot all the reviews and forwarded them to my attorney, along with evidence that they were coming from accounts created with Roxanne's personal email address. Within 24 hours, the reviews were removed and Roxanne received a cease and desist letter. But the damage was spreading beyond just me. Kira called Wednesday evening, sounding stressed and exhausted. She's been calling my new boss, Kira said, telling them I can't be trusted, that I'm a gossip who shares confidential information, that I was having an affair with a married client. Are you kidding me? I wish I was. My supervisor called me in today and asked me to explain why my former colleague was spreading rumors about my professional conduct. What did you tell them? The truth? That I was forced to cover for an inappropriate relationship, and that when I finally told the truth during an HR investigation, Roxanne blamed me for her problems. Did they believe you? I think so. I showed them the cease and desist letter my attorney sent her, and I gave them your contact information as a character reference. She's trying to destroy anyone who helped expose her affair. It gets worse. She's been posting on the neighborhood Facebook group, claiming you're an abusive husband who's trying to turn your son against her. I pulled up the neighborhood social media page and found the post Kira was talking about. Roxanne had written a long, emotional plea about being a victim of domestic emotional abuse and how she was fighting for her relationship with her son against a controlling ex-husband. The comments section was a battlefield. Some neighbors who didn't know the full story were expressing sympathy for Roxanne. Others who'd witnessed the real drama over the past few months were calling her out directly. I live next door to the Finches, wrote Donna Martinez, our longtime neighbor. I've never seen Harold raise his voice, let alone be abusive. But I have seen Roxanne stumbling home drunk at 2 a.m. while her husband was taking care of their sick child. Roxanne cheated on her husband with her married boss, added Tom Wilson from down the street. She got fired for it, and now she's trying to rewrite history. Don't fall for the victim act. This is exactly the kind of manipulation and gaslighting that emotional abusers use, wrote someone I didn't recognize. Just because you don't see physical abuse doesn't mean it's not happening. The thread had over 200 comments and was growing by the hour. I called my attorney. Document everything, Ms. Hopewell advised. Screenshot the posts, save the comments, keep records of every attempt she makes to contact you or harass people in your social circle. Is this defamation? Potentially, but more importantly, it's harassment and could be considered cyberstalking. If she keeps this up, we can get a restraining order. What about Ben? She's supposed to have visitation rights. Supervised visitation, given this behavior pattern. No judge wants to put a child in the middle of a parent who's clearly having a psychological breakdown. That evening, I sat Ben down for a serious conversation about what was happening. Your mother is going through a difficult time, I explained. She's angry and hurt, and she's not making good decisions about how to handle those feelings. Is she trying to get back at you? She's trying to get back at everyone she blames for her situation. Me, Kira, your mother's former colleagues, even some of our neighbors. That's messed up. It's what happens when someone refuses to take responsibility for their actions. Instead of dealing with the consequences of her choices, she's trying to make everyone else the villain. Are you worried? I'm concerned, but I'm not scared. We have documentation of everything. We have witnesses to the truth, and we have legal protection if things escalate. What if she tries to turn me against you? Then you'll have to decide for yourself who you believe, but I trust you to see through manipulation and make your own judgments about what's real. Ben nodded thoughtfully. Can I ask you something? Of course. Do you think she's always been like this, or is this new? It was a perceptive question from a teenager who was watching his mother self-destruct in real time. I think the affair brought out parts of her personality that were always there, but usually kept under control. The lying, the blame-shifting, the refusal to accept consequences. Those aren't new behaviors. They're just more obvious now. That's sad. Yes, it is. The social media campaign continued for another week, with Roxanne posting increasingly desperate and contradictory stories about our marriage and divorce. She claimed I was financially abusive, despite the fact that she'd had access to all our accounts and credit cards throughout our marriage. She claimed I was emotionally manipulative, while simultaneously trying to manipulate our son into pressuring me to reconcile. She claimed I was trying to destroy her reputation, while actively destroying her own credibility with every post. The turning point came when Ashley, Roxanne's former best friend, posted a response that went viral in our local community. I've known Roxanne Finch for 8 years, Ashley wrote. I was her maid of honor at her wedding. I've watched her lie to her husband, cheat with her boss, and blame everyone else for the consequences of her choices. Harold Finch is not abusive. He's the victim of a woman who can't accept responsibility for destroying her own life. The post included screenshots of text messages where Roxanne had bragged about her affair and complained about having to pretend to be a good wife when she was really living her best life with Gerry. Within hours, the narrative had completely shifted. The neighbors who'd initially sympathized with Roxanne were distancing themselves from her posts. The comments sections filled with people sharing their own stories of being deceived by her over the years. Priya, her other close friend, posted her own statement. I can no longer support someone who lies so casually and hurts so many people. Roxanne, I hope you get the help you need, but I can't be part of this anymore. By Friday, Roxanne had deleted all her social media accounts and gone silent. But the damage to her reputation was complete and permanent. In a community where social connections and professional networks overlap significantly, she'd effectively made herself unemployable and socially toxic. Kira sent me a text that weekend. She applied for a job at my new company. They called me for a reference. I told them the truth. Did she get the job? What do you think? I thought Roxanne was learning that actions have consequences, even when you try to avoid them by attacking everyone else. Ben came home from his weekend visitation looking relieved and slightly amused. She wants to move, he told me. Start fresh somewhere else where people don't know about what happened. What did you tell her? I told her that running away doesn't change who you are, and that I'm not moving away from my friends and my school because she can't handle the consequences of her own choices. How did she take that? About as well as you'd expect. Lots of crying and guilt trips about how I'm choosing my father over my mother. Are you? I'm choosing honesty over manipulation. I'm choosing stability over drama. I'm choosing the parent who treats me like I'm smart enough to see through bullshit. Language. Sorry. The parent who treats me like I'm smart enough to see through manipulation and emotional blackmail. Better. That night, I got a call from Linda Dalton, Gerry's ex-wife. I thought you should know, she said. Gerry's been arrested again. For what this time? Drunk driving. Hit a parked car and tried to flee the scene. The police found him passed out in his BMW 2 blocks away. Is anyone hurt? Just his remaining dignity? But here's the interesting part. Guess who was in the passenger seat? I didn't need to guess. Roxanne. Bingo. Apparently they've been drowning their sorrows together. Two losers commiserating about how unfair life is. Were they both arrested? She was released without charges, but the police report lists her as a witness. It's public record now. Which means it'll show up in background checks. Exactly. Good luck getting a job in corporate communications with a police report linking you to a drunk driving incident. That's unfortunate. Harold, you don't have to pretend to feel sorry for her. She made her bed. I don't feel sorry for her. I feel sorry for Ben, who has to watch his mother self-destruct. How's he handling it? Better than she is, honestly. He's got a good head on his shoulders. Kids are resilient, and he's got one stable parent, which is more than a lot of kids can say. After I hung up, I found Ben in his room playing an online game with his friends. Can I interrupt for a minute? I asked. He took off his headset. What's up? I wanted to talk to you about your mom. Is she okay? She's struggling, and I want you to know that none of this is your fault, and none of it is your responsibility to fix. I know that. Do you? Because sometimes when parents go through difficult times, kids feel like they need to take care of the adults instead of the other way around. Dad, I'm 16. I'm not stupid. I can see that Mom is having some kind of breakdown and that she's making it worse by refusing to deal with reality. That's a very mature perspective. I get it from my old man. Thanks, buddy. Plus, I've been talking to the school counselor about divorce and family dynamics. She says it's normal for the cheating parent to go through a phase where they blame everyone else before they either accept responsibility or completely self-destruct. Which do you think your mother will do? Honestly, I think she's already chosen self-destruction. The question is whether she'll eventually hit bottom and start climbing back up, or whether she'll just keep digging. And how do you feel about that? I feel like it's her choice to make, and I feel like my job is to build a good life for myself, regardless of what she decides to do with hers. I couldn't have been prouder of my son if he'd just won a Nobel Prize. The next week brought news that Roxanne and Gerry had been evicted from their respective apartments for non-payment of rent. Apparently, unemployment and legal bills had caught up with both of them. The week after that, I heard they'd moved in together in a rundown apartment complex on the other side of town. Romantic, Ben said sarcastically when I told him. Nothing says true love like shared financial ruin. Are you okay with not seeing your mother for a while? Dad, she missed our last 2 scheduled visits because she was too depressed to get out of bed. I think she's made her priorities pretty clear. She's still your mother, and you're still my father. The difference is, you act like it. That weekend, we went to a Cleveland Indians game and ate too much junk food and talked about everything except divorce, affairs, and social media drama. It was the most normal I'd felt in months. As we were walking back to the car, Ben asked me a question that caught me off guard. Dad, are you happy? What do you mean? I mean, I know the divorce was necessary, and I know Mom made terrible choices, but are you actually happy? Like, do you feel better now than you did when you were married? I thought about it as we drove home through the summer evening. Yeah, I said finally. I am happy. Not because your mother is struggling, but because I'm not pretending anymore. I'm not walking on eggshells or making excuses or trying to fix something that was never really fixable. Good. You deserve to be happy. So do you. I am happy. Weirdly enough, I'm happier now than I was when you and Mom were married and fighting all the time. We weren't fighting all the time. You weren't talking all the time either. The house feels more peaceful now, even with all the drama. He was right. Despite everything that had happened, our home felt calmer and more authentic than it had in years. That night, I updated my Facebook status for the first time since the divorce. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your family is stop pretending everything is fine when it's not. Grateful for honest conversations, loyal friends, and the chance to build something better. The post got more likes and supportive comments than anything I'd ever shared online, but more importantly, it felt true. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I thought the drama was over. Roxanne had gone quiet on social media, she'd stopped harassing my friends and colleagues, and she'd moved across town with Gerry to start their new life as a couple united by mutual destruction. I should have known it was too good to last. The call came on a Thursday evening in September. Ben was at a friend's house working on a school project, and I was enjoying a quiet dinner while catching up on some client work. Mr. Finch, this is Detective Sarah Martinez with the Cleveland Police Department. I need to ask you some questions about your ex-wife. My first thought was that Roxanne had been involved in an accident. My second thought was that she'd finally done something criminal and was trying to drag me into it. What kind of questions? She's filed a complaint alleging that you've been stalking and harassing her. She claims you've been following her, taking pictures of her residence, and making threatening phone calls. I almost laughed. Detective, I haven't spoken to my ex-wife since our divorce was finalized 3 months ago. I haven't been to her neighborhood, I don't know her phone number, and I certainly haven't been taking pictures of her. Can you account for your whereabouts last Tuesday evening between 6 and 10 p.m.? I was at my son's soccer practice until 8. Then we went to dinner at Applebee's. I can provide receipts and witnesses. What about Sunday afternoon? Grocery shopping with my son, then we watched a movie at home. Again, receipts and witnesses. Mr. Finch, I have to ask, have you hired anyone to conduct surveillance on your ex-wife? No. Detective, can I ask what evidence she's provided to support these allegations? She has photographs of someone she claims is you parked outside her apartment complex. She has records of hang-up calls from blocked numbers, and she has witness statements from neighbors who say they've seen a man matching your description in the area. Can I see the photographs? I can show you one. Detective Martinez pulled out her phone and showed me a grainy image of a man sitting in a dark sedan. The photo was taken from a distance and the lighting was poor, but I could see why someone might think it was me if they were motivated to see what they wanted to see. Detective, that's not me, but I think I know who it might be. Who? Linda Dalton. She's the ex-wife of the man Roxanne had an affair with. She hired a private investigator to document Gerry's activities for her divorce proceedings. If that investigator is still watching Gerry, and Gerry is living with Roxanne, then Roxanne might be getting caught in the surveillance. Do you have contact information for Mrs. Dalton? I do, and I'm sure she'll be happy to explain what's really going on. Detective Martinez took down Linda's information and told me she'd be in touch if she had any more questions. After she left, I called Linda to give her a heads up. Oh, this is Rich, Linda said when I explained the situation. She's being watched by my private investigator, and she thinks it's you. Is your investigator still following Gerry? 24/7. I need documentation of his activities for the custody hearing next month. The court wants to know if he's fit to have unsupervised visitation with our kids. And what is he doing that would concern the court? Well, let's see. He's been arrested twice for drunk driving, he's unemployed, he's living in a one-bedroom apartment with a woman who's not his wife, and he spends most of his days drinking beer and playing video games. Sounds like Father of the Year material. Exactly. But here's the funny part. Your ex-wife has been trying to get my investigator to stop watching them. She's approached him directly, offering to pay him to leave them alone. Did she have that kind of money? That's what I wondered. So I had him follow the money trail. And it turns out she's been selling things. Jewelry, electronics, furniture. Apparently unemployment benefits don't cover the lifestyle she got accustomed to during her affair. What kind of things is she selling? Wedding ring, engagement ring, a laptop, some designer handbags. Oh, and here's the best part. She tried to sell a watch that belonged to Gerry's father. Problem is, she didn't own it. Gerry had borrowed it from his dad and never returned it. That's theft. That's exactly what Gerry's father thought when he found out. He filed a police report yesterday. I was starting to see a pattern. Roxanne wasn't just struggling financially, she was spiraling into increasingly desperate and illegal behavior. Linda, I think you should talk to Detective Martinez. Roxanne is trying to frame me for stalking her, but your investigator can provide an alibi for the times she claims I was watching her. I'll call the detective right now. This is actually perfect timing. How so? Because I've been looking for a way to demonstrate that your ex-wife is an unstable influence on Gerry, and filing false police reports against innocent people is exactly the kind of evidence I need. After I hung up with Linda, I called my attorney to update her on the situation. This is escalating beyond divorce drama, Ms. Hopewell said. Filing false police reports is a crime. If she keeps this up, she could face serious legal consequences. What should I do? Document everything. Keep records of your whereabouts. Avoid any contact with her or anyone associated with her. And if she tries to approach you or Ben directly, call the police immediately. Do you think she's dangerous? I think she's desperate, and desperate people make unpredictable choices. The next morning, I got a call from Ben's school. Mr. Finch, this is Principal Williams. I need you to come in right away. There's been an incident involving your ex-wife. I was at the school within 15 minutes, where I found Ben sitting in the principal's office looking annoyed rather than upset. What happened? I asked. Mom showed up during lunch, Ben explained. She wanted to take me out of school to talk about our relationship without you being involved. Did you go with her? Hell no. I told the office I didn't want to leave with her, and they called you. Principal Williams pulled me aside. Mr. Finch, your ex-wife became quite agitated when we wouldn't release Ben to her custody. She made some concerning statements about you being an unfit parent and claimed she was protecting Ben from an abusive situation. What kind of statements? She said you were stalking her, that you were trying to turn Ben against her, and that she was afraid for her safety and his. None of that is true. We figured as much, given Ben's reaction and the fact that we've never seen any evidence of the behavior she's describing. But I wanted you to know that she's been banned from campus pending a review of the situation. Can she do that? Just show up and try to take him? According to your custody agreement, she's supposed to give 24 hours notice for any changes to the visitation schedule. Showing up unannounced and demanding to remove him from school violates that agreement. I took Ben home early and called my attorney again. She's violating the custody order, Ms. Hopewell said after I explained what had happened. We can file a motion to modify her visitation rights to supervised visits only. Do it. Harold, I have to warn you, this is going to get ugly. When someone is this far into a psychological breakdown, they often escalate before they get better. What kind of escalation? More false accusations, attempts to turn Ben against you, possibly even physical confrontation. You need to be prepared for anything. That evening, I had a long conversation with Ben about what was happening and what we needed to do to protect ourselves. She's not thinking clearly, I explained. When people are under extreme stress and refuse to deal with the real causes of their problems, they sometimes create elaborate fantasies about who's really to blame. So she's convinced herself that you're the villain in her story? Exactly. Instead of accepting that her affair destroyed her marriage and her career, she's decided that I'm some kind of mastermind who orchestrated her downfall. That's insane. It's a psychological defense mechanism. It's easier to believe that you're the victim of a conspiracy than to admit that you destroyed your own life through bad choices. What do we do if she shows up here? We don't answer the door. We call the police. We document everything. And we don't engage with her directly under any circumstances. Even if she's crying or says she's sorry, especially then. Ben, your mother isn't well right now. The person who might show up here isn't the mother you remember. It's someone who's been consumed by anger and desperation and isn't thinking rationally. That's scary. It is. But we're prepared. We have legal protection, and we're not going to let her chaos become our chaos. 2 days later, we got a chance to test that resolve. I was in my home office around 9 p.m. when I heard a car door slam in our driveway. I looked out the window and saw Roxanne getting out of an old Honda Civic that I didn't recognize. She was alone, but she was carrying what looked like a baseball bat. I immediately called 911 while watching her approach the front door. 911, what's your emergency? This is Harold Finch at 1247 Maple Street. My ex-wife is on my property with what appears to be a weapon. I have a restraining order against her. Sir, are you and your family safe? We're inside the house. She's outside trying to get in. Officers are on the way. Stay on the line. Roxanne was pounding on the front door and shouting loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Harold, I know you're in there. We need to talk. You can't keep hiding from me. Ben appeared in the doorway of my office. Is that Mom? Stay back from the windows, I told him. The police are coming. Harold! Roxanne's voice was getting more shrill. Open this door. I'm not leaving until we settle this. I heard a loud bang. She was hitting the door with the bat. She's trying to break down the front door, I told the 911 operator. Sir, officers are 2 minutes away. Another bang, and I heard wood splintering. Ben, go to your room and lock the door, I said. I'm not leaving you alone with her. Go. Now. Reluctantly, Ben headed upstairs. I stayed on the phone with 911 and watched through the window as Roxanne continued her assault on our front door. She was screaming now, a stream of accusations and threats that made no sense. You destroyed my life. You turned my son against me. You ruined my career. You made everyone hate me. The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so terrifying. Finally, I heard sirens approaching. Roxanne heard them too, because she stopped hitting the door and turned toward the street. For a moment, I thought she might run. Instead, she threw the bat down and sat on our front steps, putting her head in her hands. 2 police cars pulled into our driveway, and 4 officers approached the house with their hands on their weapons. Ma'am, step away from the door and put your hands where we can see them, one of the officers called out. Roxanne stood up slowly, her hands raised. Even from inside the house, I could see that she was crying. He's been stalking me, she said to the officers. He's been harassing me and threatening me and trying to turn my son against me. Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us. But he's the one who... Ma'am, you're on his property with a weapon, and there's a restraining order in place. You need to come with us now. They handcuffed her and put her in the back of one of the patrol cars. The lead officer came to the door to take my statement. Mr. Finch, I'm Officer Rodriguez. Are you and your son okay? We're fine. Shaken up, but fine. Can you tell me what happened? I gave him a detailed account of the evening's events, including the 911 call recording and the damage to our front door. This is the ex-wife who filed the stalking complaint against you. The same one. Detective Martinez can fill you in on the details, but it turns out she was being watched by a private investigator working for someone else entirely. We'll need you to come down to the station tomorrow to file a formal complaint for criminal trespassing, vandalism, and violation of the restraining order. What happens to her tonight? She'll be held pending arraignment. Given the restraining order violation and the weapon, she'll probably be looking at significant charges. After the police left, I called Ben downstairs, and we surveyed the damage to our front door. The wood around the lock was splintered, and there were several deep gouges from the bat. Is she going to jail? Ben asked. Probably, at least for tonight. Maybe longer, depending on what the judge decides. How do you feel about that? I feel like she made her choice. I feel like we did everything we could to avoid this situation. And I feel like we're finally safe. Do you think she'll get help? I hope so, but that's not our responsibility anymore. Ben nodded. I know. It's just sad, you know? Watching someone you used to love destroy themselves. It is sad, but it's also not our fault. I know that too. We spent the next hour boarding up the damaged door and making sure all the other entrances to the house were secure. Then we ordered pizza and tried to pretend it was a normal evening. But it wasn't normal, and we both knew that this was probably just the beginning of Roxanne's final spiral into complete self-destruction. The next morning, I got a call from Detective Martinez. Mr. Finch, I owe you an apology. We've confirmed that the surveillance your ex-wife reported was being conducted by a licensed private investigator working for Mrs. Dalton. Your ex-wife's allegations against you were completely false. What happens now? She's being charged with filing a false police report, criminal trespassing, vandalism, and violation of a restraining order. Depending on her criminal history and how she pleads, she could be looking at significant jail time. What about the custody arrangement with my son? Given last night's incident and the false accusations, I'd say any reasonable judge would terminate her unsupervised visitation rights indefinitely. Good. Mr. Finch, I have to ask, do you have any idea why she's so fixated on you? Usually when someone files false reports, there's some underlying motivation beyond just wanting to cause trouble. I thought about that question for a long time before answering. Detective, I think she's realized that her life is completely ruined, and she can't accept that she's the one who ruined it. So she's created this elaborate fantasy where I'm the villain who destroyed everything, because that's easier than taking responsibility for her own choices. That makes sense. Unfortunately, it also makes her unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Are you recommending additional security measures? I'm recommending that you and your son stay vigilant and continue to document everything. People in her psychological state sometimes escalate to more serious crimes before they hit rock bottom. More serious how? Property damage, threats against employers or friends, sometimes even violence. The good news is that she's now in the system, so if anything else happens, we'll be able to respond quickly. That afternoon, I picked Ben up from school and took him to a locksmith to get new keys for all our doors. Then we went to a hardware store and bought a security system for the house. Are we in danger? Ben asked as we installed motion sensors around the perimeter of our property. We're being careful, I said. There's a difference. But you think she might try something else? I think she's not thinking clearly, and when people aren't thinking clearly, they sometimes do things that surprise everyone. Like what? Like showing up at your school, like attacking our front door with a baseball bat, like filing false police reports. Or like having an affair with her boss and destroying her entire life? Exactly like that. That evening, Linda Dalton called with an update on her situation. The judge awarded me full custody, she said. Gerry gets supervised visitation twice a month, and only if he passes a drug and alcohol test beforehand. How did he take the news? About as well as you'd expect. Lots of shouting about how unfair everything is, and how he's the victim of a vindictive ex-wife. Sounds familiar. The interesting part is what happened after the hearing. Your ex-wife was waiting for him in the parking lot, and they had a screaming match right there in front of the courthouse. About what? About money, mostly. Apparently, she's been supporting both of them with money from selling her belongings, and she's running out of things to sell. What did Gerry say? He told her that her legal problems weren't his responsibility, and that she needed to figure out her own way to pay for a lawyer. Trouble in paradise? It gets better. She accused him of using her for a place to live, and then abandoning her when things got difficult. He accused her of being crazy and said he was thinking about moving back in with his mother. Are they still together? As of yesterday, no. My investigator says Gerry moved out of their apartment and is now living in his car. And Roxanne? Still in the apartment, as far as I know, but she's behind on rent and facing eviction. So she's alone, broke, facing criminal charges, and about to be homeless. That about sums it up. Harold, I have to ask, do you feel bad for her? I thought about that question for a long time. I feel bad that she made choices that led to this situation, I said finally. I feel bad that Ben has to watch his mother self-destruct. I feel bad that it took criminal charges and a restraining order to make her leave us alone. But do you feel bad for her personally? No, I don't. She had opportunities to make different choices at every step of this process. She chose to have an affair instead of ending our marriage. She chose to lie and manipulate instead of being honest. She chose to attack everyone else instead of taking responsibility for her own actions. And now she's facing the consequences. Good. Some people need to hit rock bottom before they can start climbing back up. And some people just keep digging. Which do you think she'll do? I think she'll keep digging until someone stops her, or until she runs out of energy to keep destroying herself. Well, at least it's not your problem anymore. No, it's not my problem anymore. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't entirely true. As long as Roxanne was Ben's mother, her problems would always affect our lives in some way. The question was whether she'd eventually get the help she needed, or whether she'd continue spiraling until she destroyed herself completely. Based on everything I'd seen over the past 6 months, I wasn't optimistic about her chances. The end came on a cold October evening, exactly 7 months after I'd first called Roxanne's office and spoken to Kira. It was the kind of night that makes you grateful for warm houses and stable lives, the kind of night that makes you realize how far you can fall when you stop making good decisions. I was helping Ben with his college applications when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer it anyway. Harold? The voice was barely above a whisper, hoarse and desperate. It's me. I almost didn't recognize Roxanne's voice. She sounded like she'd been crying for hours. Or maybe days. Roxanne, you're not supposed to contact me. There's a restraining order. I know, but I didn't know who else to call. They're going to arrest me tomorrow. For what? Everything. The false police reports, violating the restraining order, theft. My lawyer says I'm looking at 2 years in prison. I felt Ben watching me from across the kitchen table, his college essay forgotten. I'm sorry to hear that, I said, and I meant it. Despite everything she'd done, I didn't take pleasure in watching the mother of my child face prison time. Harold, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Okay. Do you think I'm a bad person? The question caught me off guard. After months of false accusations, harassment, and increasingly erratic behavior, she was asking for my honest assessment of her character. I think you're a person who made bad choices, I said carefully. I think you let those bad choices define you instead of learning from them and making better ones. That's not what I asked. I know what you asked. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Roxanne spoke again, her voice was different, smaller, more vulnerable than I'd heard it in years. I ruined everything, didn't I? Yes, you did. I destroyed our marriage. I destroyed my career. I destroyed my relationship with Ben. I destroyed my friendships. I destroyed my reputation. Yes. And I did it all for a man who threw me away the moment things got difficult. Yes. Another long silence. Harold, I want you to know that I know. I know that none of this was your fault. I know that you didn't make me have an affair. I know that you didn't make me lie about it. I know that you didn't make me attack people who were just telling the truth. Okay. And I know that saying I'm sorry doesn't fix anything. I know that it doesn't undo the damage or give you back the months of your life that I made miserable with my drama. No, it doesn't. But I am sorry, not because I got caught, but because I hurt people who didn't deserve it. Because I turned into someone I don't recognize. Because I let my worst impulses control my decisions. I appreciate you saying that. Can I ask you one more thing? What? Will you tell Ben that I love him? That none of this was his fault? That I hope someday he can forgive me for being such a terrible example of how adults should handle their problems? I looked across the table at Ben, who was clearly listening to every word of the conversation. You can tell him yourself, I said. He's right here. I can't. The restraining order. The restraining order prevents you from contacting me or coming to our house. It doesn't prevent you from talking to your son if he wants to talk to you. I held out the phone to Ben. He stared at it for a long moment, then shook his head. I'm not ready, he said quietly. I put the phone back to my ear. He's not ready to talk right now. I understand. Will you tell him what I said? I'll tell him. Harold? Yeah? Thank you for being a good father, for protecting him from my chaos, for not turning him against me even though you had every right to. You're welcome. And Harold, I hope you find someone who deserves you, someone who appreciates what they have instead of throwing it away for something shiny and new. Take care of yourself, Roxanne. I'll try. The line went silent. Ben and I sat in silence for several minutes, processing the conversation. How do you feel? I asked finally. Sad, he said. Not sad for her exactly, just sad about the whole situation. That's normal. Do you think she meant it, the apology? I think she meant it in that moment. Whether she'll still mean it tomorrow or next week or next year is a different question. Do you think she'll get better? I think prison might force her to confront some things about herself that she's been avoiding. Whether that leads to actual change or just better manipulation skills remains to be seen. Harsh. Realistic. Ben nodded and went back to his college essay. I went back to helping him, but part of my mind was still processing the phone call and what it meant for our future. The next morning, I got a call from Detective Martinez. Mr. Finch, I wanted to let you know that we arrested your ex-wife this morning. She didn't resist, and she asked me to tell you that she won't be contacting you or your son again. What's she looking at for sentencing? Her lawyer is trying to negotiate a plea deal, probably 18 months to 2 years, depending on whether the judge accepts the agreement. And after that? She'll be on probation for several years. Any violation of the restraining order or any attempt to contact you or your son without permission will result in additional charges. Good. Mr. Finch, I have to say, in 20 years of police work, I've rarely seen someone self-destruct as thoroughly as your ex-wife did. It's almost like she was determined to burn down every bridge and destroy every relationship in her life. I think that's exactly what she was doing. Any idea why? Because it was easier than admitting she was wrong. Because it was easier than taking responsibility for her choices. Because it was easier than doing the hard work of rebuilding her life. Well, she's going to have plenty of time to think about it now. That afternoon, I picked Ben up from school and we drove to the park where we used to play when he was little. We sat on a bench and watched other families enjoying the autumn weather. Dad, can I ask you something? Of course. Are you happy that Mom's going to prison? No, I'm not happy about it. I'm relieved that the harassment is over, and I'm glad that she's finally facing consequences for her actions. But I'm not happy that it came to this. Why not? Because she's still your mother. Because prison is a terrible place that damages people more often than it helps them. Because I would have preferred for her to get help before it got to this point. But you're not surprised? No, I'm not surprised. When someone refuses to accept responsibility for their actions and keeps escalating their behavior, prison is often where they end up. Do you think she'll be different when she gets out? I don't know. Some people use prison as an opportunity to reflect and change. Others just get angrier and more resentful. We'll have to wait and see which category your mother falls into. And if she wants to see me when she gets out? That'll be your decision to make. You'll be 18 or 19 by then, so legally I won't have any say in whether you have a relationship with her. What would you recommend? I'd recommend that you judge her by her actions, not her words. I'd recommend that you protect yourself from being manipulated or guilt-tripped, and I'd recommend that you remember that forgiveness doesn't require you to put yourself in a position to be hurt again. That's good advice. I hope so. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun set over the park. Dad? Yeah? I'm proud of you. For what? Oh, for handling all this with dignity, for not stooping to her level, for protecting me without turning me against her, for showing me what it looks like to be a good man even when other people are being terrible. Thanks, buddy. That means everything to me. And Dad? Yeah? I'm excited about college, but I'm also going to miss living with you. I'm going to miss you too, but you'll always have a home here, and you'll always be my son, no matter where life takes you. I know. As we drove home, I reflected on the past 7 months and how much our lives had changed. I'd lost a marriage, but I'd gained clarity about what I wanted in a relationship. I'd lost the illusion of a stable family, but I'd gained a deeper connection with my son. I'd lost my faith in my ex-wife, but I'd gained confidence in my own judgment and decision-making. Most importantly, I'd learned that you can't save someone who's determined to destroy themselves. You can only protect yourself and the people you love from being dragged down with them. That evening, I updated my Facebook status one final time about the whole situation. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let someone face the consequences of their choices. Grateful for the lessons learned, the relationship strengthened, and the chance to build something better from the ashes of what was. The post got dozens of supportive comments from friends, neighbors, and even some people I barely knew who had followed the drama from the beginning. But the comment that meant the most came from Ben. Proud to be your son, Dad. Looking forward to whatever comes next. 3 weeks later, I got a letter from Roxanne's attorney. She had been sentenced to 18 months in prison, followed by 3 years of probation. She was also required to undergo counseling for anger management and substance abuse. The letter included a note from Roxanne herself. Harold, I know I have no right to ask for anything from you, but I'm asking anyway. Please don't let Ben forget that there was a time when I was a good mother. Please don't let him think that the person I became is the person I always was. And please tell him that I hope to earn the right to be part of his life again someday, but that I understand if that never happens. Thank you for being the parent he deserved when I couldn't be. R. I showed the letter to Ben. Are you going to respond? He asked. I don't think so. She said what she needed to say. Do you think she means it this time? I think she wants to mean it. Whether she actually follows through remains to be seen. Fair enough. That night, Ben and I ordered pizza and watched a movie, just like we had so many times over the past year. But this time felt different. This time felt final. The chaos was over. The drama had ended. Roxanne was facing the consequences of her choices, and Ben and I were free to build whatever kind of life we wanted without looking over our shoulders. As I tucked Ben in that night, yes, I still tucked in my 16-year-old son, and no, I wasn't embarrassed about it. He asked me one last question. Dad, do you ever regret how you handled all this? Do you ever wonder if you could have done something differently that might have saved Mom from herself? I thought about that question for a long time. No, I said finally. I did everything I could to protect our family while still being fair and honest. I gave your mother multiple opportunities to make better choices. I never lied about her or tried to destroy her reputation. I just stopped covering for her lies and let the truth speak for itself. So you don't feel guilty? I feel sad about how it all turned out. I feel bad that you had to watch your mother self-destruct. I feel regret that our family couldn't stay together, but I don't feel guilty about refusing to enable destructive behavior or about protecting us from someone who was determined to hurt everyone around her. Good, because you shouldn't feel guilty. You saved us, Dad. You saved me from growing up thinking that her behavior was normal or acceptable. I love you, buddy. I love you too. As I turned off the lights and headed to my own room, I realized that for the first time in almost a year, I felt completely at peace. Roxanne's story was over, at least as far as Ben and I were concerned. Whatever happened to her from this point forward was her responsibility, not ours. Our story, the story of a father and son building a good life together despite the chaos around them, was just beginning. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I was excited to see what came next. The next morning, I deleted Roxanne's contact information from my phone, removed the last of her belongings from the house, and changed our emergency contact information at Ben's school. Then I made coffee, read the newspaper, and started planning our weekend. It was time to move forward. It was time to live well, It was time to be happy. And as I sat in my kitchen, listening to Ben get ready for school upstairs, I realized that despite everything we'd been through, we were going to be just fine. Better than fine, actually. We were going to be great.